everyone, thanks for joining me today. My name is Ann Crawford and I'm the Reference and Adult Services Librarian at the Ponte Vedra Beach Branch Library, and I'm here to wish you a happy Independence Day. So just in a few short days we'll be celebrating July 4th as a nation, and I thought what more appropriate genre of books to dive into than history books, because this is a very historical moment in our nation's history. And we have some brand new history books that we've added to our downloadable database, Overdrive, which has ebooks and e-audio books. So I thought you might be interested in learning about what some of those new titles are, a little bit about them, and while you're going to want to grab your nearest device and go ahead and download them today. So if you have a St. Johns County Library card and you have a device, go ahead and pull those out and get ready to download some really incredible new history books that we have available to you in our library. So I thought I'd start off with this one, since we're talking about Independence Day and the 4th of July. It seemed fitting to start here, and that is American Rebels: How the Hancock, Adams, and Quincy Families Fanned the Flames of Revolution. So one of the things that I love about history today, as opposed to maybe the way people remember reading history books, dry, boring, dull, is that they really take the effort and the time to put you right there in the moment of history and learn about these people as people rather than just historical names and figures that you're reading about from a distance. So I thought this one was particularly relevant since, of course, the American Revolution is how the 4th of July and Independence Day came to be. So these are all families' names that you might be familiar with, those last names, Hancock, Adams, and Quincy. But you might not know as much about them personally and what their personal stake was in the Revolution, as opposed to just, hearing kind of the bullet points that maybe you remember, like I did, kind of memorizing the different beats to the American Revolution. This is more of an opportunity to kind of deep dive in. I believe there was a great mini-series put together a few years back on John Adams that was very popular. So you might be thinking, read this book and watch that mini-series. So American Rebels, one to definitely remember as we're celebrating our nation's birth. And along the same line, speaking of John Adams, here we go. Now, this is a different John Adams than you may have remembered. John Adams Under Fire: The Founding Fathers Fight for Justice in the Boston Massacre Murder Trial. Now, if I've got my dates right, this year marks 250 years. That, I think, is the 250th year since the Boston Massacre Murder Trial. I remember it was a big celebratory number, and it's 250 years. And what's really interesting about this is, as you may or may not know, the Boston Massacre, of course, involved both people who had come to America, Americans, as you were, who were part of the Boston Massacre, and of course the British, who were the big enemy at the time, and brought about this horrific massacre. And so John Adams decided to fight for justice. And of course, immediately you assume, well, he's a future second president of our nation. Surely he went to bat to defend the Americans in the Boston Massacre. And that's what he did. Whew. I almost lost that. I'm going to put that down on the ground. So it would make sense to assume that, of course, he defended his fellow Americans because he is American. And he didn't. He actually went to bat in court for the British that were needing to be defended in the Boston Massacre. And I thought that was incredibly interesting, because I thought, well, how on earth did Americans manage to get past that to elect him as our second president? So it brings about three really interesting questions. Why did he decide to defend the British instead of his own, the Americans, in the Boston Massacre? What was the outcome of the trial and the fallout for him personally? And how, with all of that, did he manage to get elected as the second president of the United States? Because I'm thinking the fact that John Adams was under fire signifies to me that people were not looking to let that one go. So a very intriguing book and a very different take on John Adams than maybe you ever had before. Maybe John Adams prior to this was just, you know, the second president of the United States, one of the founding fathers, end of story. But this narrative clearly shows there was a lot more going on with the second president of the United States, and certainly long before our country founded its independence. So definitely an interesting book to deep dive. The next one has a more military bent, 82 Days on Okinawa, one American's unforgettable first-hand account of the Pacific War's greatest battle. So again, like I was saying with history, because of the advances that we've made in technology, the opportunities we have to get more information about historical accounts, taking interviews with people who survived these encounters, getting their first-hand accounts, we're able to get a much more in-depth view of what history really means. And I think that's certainly true in this book. So if reading about war, reading about a first-hand narrative is something that really grabs you, if you were someone who enjoyed Unbroken, this might be a book that you would also enjoy. Just to know firsthand what was that experience like, either because you too had a similar experience, or you lived during the time of that experience, or like me, you didn't live during that time period and you want to understand more about it. Because I think we're all familiar with the phrase, if you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to repeat it. And that's so true, because how easy would it be to fall into the same mistake if you haven't learned from prior mistakes that we as a country, as a people, have made. So that's why history is so incredibly important, to learn what people have experienced and also to develop a great sense of empathy. It's hard to necessarily relate to someone who's been in battle if you yourself haven't been there. But by reading, you get a much closer appreciation of what that means and what it means to come home after that battle and deal with the post-traumatic stress. So again, a really hard-hitting book, but a worthwhile read, 82 Days on Okinawa. Our next one is about a librarian. I couldn't help myself. I'm a librarian, so of course I had to feature a book about a librarian, and this one is Adelaide Life, the true story of the librarian of Auschwitz. Now, we also own this book in print format, and it's got a big wait list on it. So if you're not on that wait list and you want to jump on the wait list for this copy, download it to your tablet or device. I highly recommend that you do. And again, like I said, there's nothing like a first-hand account to really get yourself inside what a situation in history was like. Rather than just kind of reading about it from a distance, there's something about being paired up with someone who's right there in the middle of it to see it for what it is. So again, this has been a very popular book in print, and we're very glad that we got to pick it up as an ebook, because of course during the summer a lot of us might be traveling, maybe not. If nothing else, if you are traveling, then you know it's nice not to pack 10 books in your suitcase. How much easier it is to just download them to your device and go. And if you aren't traveling, what a safe way to get the books that you want to read, by downloading them to your tablet. You don't have to leave your house. You don't have to go inside a building, particularly if you're over the age of 65. You don't have to unnecessarily expose yourself to any germs. So ebooks are really wonderful that way. So again, if you want to get a closer view of Auschwitz, a really terrible time in history. But again, sometimes you have to read about those terrible times to learn the really important and valuable lessons to not repeat in the future. So next we have, this is again where you're getting a different side of history than maybe you had before. So you might know James Madison as just one of our United States presidents, but this is going to give you a very different side of James Madison. This is the Other Madison, The Lost History of a President's Black Family. Now this ties into a later book I'm going to talk about, and that is, more than ever, our country is interested in genealogy. And more to the point, not only are we interested in the genealogy, we have ways of learning about our genealogy that we never had before. You know, there's 23andMe, we have the Ancestry database as part of our library system that you can access with your library card. There's all sorts of genealogy organizations that you can join, find out all about your family tree. It's really a thing now. And of course, you know, it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you find out all these incredible things about these people you're related to. And on the other hand, you find out all these incredible things about the people you're related to. There's good, bad, and everything in between. And in this particular book, the author finds out about her relationship to James Madison. A part of James Madison's family she had no idea that she was related to, and what that means, not just in terms of history, but what that means for her personally, and how she comes to reconcile with that. Because that is the thing about genealogy. On the one hand, it's learning something about history, but on the other hand, it's something that's incredibly personal and can be life-altering. And I think certainly in this case, it was. So if you're looking to learn a little bit more about James Madison in a way that you didn't before, and how genealogy can really be, you know, like I said, earth-shattering and fascinating, both in good and bad ways, then this is the book for you. That's not to deter you from looking into your genealogy, just to be cognizant, be aware that, you know, when you find out more about your history, you do find out more about your history, and it can go in a lot of different ways. And that leads me directly into my next book, which is The Lost Family, How DNA Testing is Upending Who We Are. And it is. Obviously, for the author prior to this book, the Other Madisons, it definitely upended everything that she believed. I don't think she thought for a second when she went to do that genealogy that she would be related to James Madison. That was certainly quite the unexpected moment. And I think that's what they're saying here too, is that, you know, what you think you know about your family may not be what is actually true about your family. And I mentioned about this in a different presentation I did on true crime, when I mentioned Bobby Dunbar, about the case for Solomon, whereby they found out almost 100 years later that Bobby Dunbar, who disappeared at 4 years of age and then suddenly was recovered less than a year later, the little boy that was recovered was not Bobby Dunbar at all. But of course, in the 1920s, we didn't have the advances in genealogy that we have now. So of course, you know, had that same case happened now, they wouldn't have had that mistaken identity. And this takes it from the other angle, that you can think you know your family tree, and then you can find out what your family tree really entails. And sometimes it's just an interesting new thing that you learn, and other times it can be really, whoa, I was not seeing that coming. So definitely, if you're thinking about doing 23andMe or going through Ancestry or doing any sorts of genealogical research, I suggest reading this book and just getting a perspective of what you may be in for as you learn. Again, not deterring you from learning about it at all, but just that it is changing a lot of things for people. Knowledge is, as they say, power. So DNA testing is really revealing a lot of things that maybe people didn't expect. Oh, here we are. We've got our secret word for our presentation, and it is Best Summer 01. That's Best Summer 01. So if you're participating in our summer reading program and you've got your Read Squared app, this is the login code you want to give it, and you will get 50 points towards the summer reading program. Hopefully you'll stick with me for the second half of this presentation. But this is the secret word, Best Summer 01. All right, so on to our next book. Many of you probably know about John F. Kennedy, about his assassination, about his presidency. I mean, there are dozens and dozens of books out there about both, and about him as a person. Who you might know a little less about, especially if you're like me and you didn't grow up in that time period, is Bobby Kennedy. And that's who this book is about, JFK's brother. And this book takes place about, I want to say 9 months. No, I take it back. It's not 9 months. It takes place several years after JFK's assassination. There must be something that I think you're covering a span of time, but it culminates in Robert Kennedy's 1968 tour of Appalachia. And this is all this marvelous potential when he goes on this tour and learns a lot more about the people he is so incredibly different from. I mean, he's been born into a very famous family, a very well-to-do family. You know, everyone knows who the Kennedys are. And the place that he decides to tour, Appalachia, couldn't be more different. These are people who are, you know, living month to month, day to day, are poverty-stricken, are looking to see how they're going to make it just into the next year. So this was really insightful about Bobby Kennedy. Oh, I know what I'm getting confused. This didn't take place several months before JFK's assassination. Sadly, this took place several months before Bobby Kennedy's assassination, right? Because both of them were assassinated in 63 and 68. So this took place probably about less than a year before his assassination. So if you ever wanted to learn a little bit more about Bobby Kennedy, JFK's brother, then I highly recommend this book. And honestly, it may be a book that I deep dive into, since I'm not getting all my history exactly right. I'm going to blame it a little bit on the heat out here. It is hot as blazes, as I'm sure it'll be for your 4th of July as well. So what better way than to cool off with a deep dive into history. Good book, in the air conditioning. All right, so now a little bit more into history. And like I said, not so much fun history, but just history you didn't expect. History that didn't necessarily come across in the textbooks maybe you read in school. And this one's called Faster: How a Jewish Driver, an American Heiress, and a legendary car beat Hitler's best. So definitely a different slice of history than maybe you've read before, and I think it's definitely worth the deep dive. And I wouldn't say it necessarily reminded me of Seabiscuit necessarily, but it did, maybe in the sense that it takes place in a time period, and there are things going on in that time period that you're familiar with, but it gives you a little bit of different insight into that time period. And so, racing against Hitler's best, and you can see there is Hitler's symbol right there, and clearly this is the car that is faster. I can see them, I think maybe where the comparison to Seabiscuit came from is they made Seabiscuit into a movie, and I wouldn't be surprised if they made this one into a movie as well, for that slice of historical perspective. So definitely recommend it. Faster: How a Jewish Driver, an American Heiress, and a legendary car beat Hitler's best. All right, so speaking of Hitler, we're going to move right on to him, and this, rather than a book that's about a car, about an opportunity, kind of a, maybe an uplifting, pull yourself up by the bootstraps kind of story. Now we're going to get into something much more heavy and intense, and that is Hitler's first days when Germans embraced the Third Reich. So again, if you're interested in different points in history, the people writing history now, the people publishing history, are doing a much better job of really making it much more engaging than maybe you remember. So if you in the past have said, I don't know, history's not for me, it's kind of dry and boring, I really recommend you give some of these titles a try. And certainly this one as well, because again, don't learn from the past, you could be doomed to repeat it. And there's definitely elements of our past we do not want to repeat. All right, speaking of a book that's got a ton of people on the wait list for it, for the hard copy, here is the electronic copy of Lady in Waiting, My Extraordinary Life in the Shadow of the Crown. I don't think there's ever been a time that we haven't been fascinated with royalty throughout the years, but especially now where they have more and more royalty-inspired shows like The Crown and movies like Queen Victoria. I mean, there's so much out there about the monarchy, and I'm just scratching the surface. But this book is incredibly popular in its hardcover copy, so if you haven't gotten on the list for that, I would recommend you get on the list for this ebook. And again, you know, like I said, maybe it's partly, you know, Downton Abbey as well. We're very fascinated by, you know, kind of that upper crust society and that almost soap opera-ish life that seems to go on, and how, you know, their lives are so completely different from ours, but in a way, maybe not so much. Maybe not so much. Much on a much larger scale, of course, but I think those of us who have siblings, if you've ever been the younger sibling or you just felt like you were in the shadow of one of your siblings, this could be a book that you relate to. So again, you know, if you haven't gotten on the wait list for the print copy, consider getting on the wait list for the ebook copy. Lady in Waiting. All right, well, this year is the 100th year of women's suffrage, which is quite the celebration. That takes place in August, and that's a really big deal. Like in that 19th Amendment passed for women to get the right to vote. And so tying right into that, we've got A Dirty Year, Sex, Suffrage, and Scandal, the Gilded Age of New York. So again, you know, taking a little bit of a different perspective on women's suffrage and putting you right there in New York at during the Gilded Age, and putting you right there in the moment with all the cast of characters. So definitely an intriguing read, and if you're reading up on women's suffrage in anticipation of the centennial anniversary of women getting the right to vote in August, then I would highly recommend that you check out this book as well, and get another little slice into history. And this is A Dirty Year, Sex, Suffrage, and Scandal, the Gilded Age of New York. In Gilded Age New York, I should say. All right. Now, speaking of incredible women, in addition to celebrating the 100th year of women getting the right to vote, also, if any of you have ever watched that wonderful movie, A League of Their Own, you know about the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, and that's what this book is about, the incredible women of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. And what a time in our nation's history. The boys, as they were called, went off to war, World War II, and so there was the question of what were they going to do about men's baseball. The men weren't there to play baseball, and thus the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League was born. And rather than just being a kind of entertaining sideline while the boys were off at war, it became something that really enthralled our nation, because these women were incredibly talented, and this was seeing women in a totally different way than women were used to be seen. At that time, women were homemakers. Women raised the babies in the family. They weren't, you know, out right out in the common eye. You know, they certainly weren't out on the baseball field playing baseball. So if you enjoyed A League of Their Own and you enjoyed that story, here's a way to really get in depth and to hear from some of the individual women who were a part of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, what it was really like for them. Because you get a little bit, you scratch the surface on that a little bit in A League of Their Own, you know, when they're debating about the fact that, you know, they're going to have to wear skirts to play baseball, and they're like, you know, I can't slide into a base with that, and, you know, my husband would kill me if I wore something that short and revealing. And so, you know, there was a struggle there for them to be taken seriously as baseball players, and you get more in depth with that in this book. So I really, really recommend it. I feel like 2020 being the 100th year celebration of women getting the right to vote, it just feels like a real, as I tell my 8.5-year-old daughter, a real girl power kind of year. So it's another girl power kind of book. So I really recommend it. All right, so we have come to the end, and so that's just a little quick explanation of some of the wonderful history books we have in Overdrive. Get your device out, get your library card out, start downloading these today. Don't let any past impressions inform you that, you know, history's just dry and boring, there's nothing to it. There's a lot to it. And not just about, you know, learning from the past so you don't repeat it, but also just learning so much about other people and other time periods, and just broadening your perspective. It's really incredible. So I really recommend that you share, like, and comment on this video so we can get it out there to the masses. Encourage people to get their St. Johns County Library card. Encourage them to get into Overdrive by downloading Libby and finding out more about these incredible new books that we've got in Overdrive, just waiting for you to download and read. And so also, when you comment on this video, tell us about any future presentations that you're interested in so that we can work on those and make sure we present those as part of our virtual programming. Additionally, don't forget that while our videos are viewed and archived on our Facebook page, they are also viewable and archived on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is SJC Library Vid. That's SJC Library Vid. And you can see all of our presentations dating all the way back to mid-March when COVID-19 broke out. And any presentations that are been given in June or July have those special codes. And if you watch them, you can use those. Sorry, I've got all sorts of bugs flying around me. I imagine that filming outside. You can tap in those special codes and you can earn points towards the summer reading program by watching those videos. Last but not least, since I know if you're watching this video, chances are you're probably a reader, I really want to encourage you to join our Zoom book clubs. As you know, right now, we're not able to have traditional programming in our library branches because of COVID-19, because of social distancing, because also we don't want to put our 65 years and older patrons at any kind of risk. So right now what we've set up are Zoom book clubs. So if you get out your device or your phone, you can download the free app Zoom, and if you register on our library's webpage or by emailing someone, the event will tell you exactly what to do. You can join up with a whole bunch of other interested readers, read a book, and then all talk about it right there on your device. It'll look a little bit like maybe what you remember about the Brady Bunch, you know, we're all 9 faces, we're all on one screen. That's a little bit like what Zoom is like. You can see everybody's faces, people can kind of raise their hands so the moderator, the person running the book club, the librarian, can call on people. And so it's a way to replicate that book club fun that you've had in our libraries right from the comfort and safety of your home. So if you haven't done it yet, check it out. If you're not sure how to begin, what it all means, call one of our branches or use Ask a Librarian. We will be happy to tell you more about how to get involved. And this may be the way that we do book clubs for a little while, so we really do encourage you to jump on board with us. So thank you again so much for joining me today for great new history reads in Overdrive. I hope you're going to download some fantastic books to your devices, and stay cool by staying indoors. Obviously, being outdoors is a little tough at this time of year. And happy 4th of July. Have a great day. See you next time.